こんにちは、hola, 大家好，bonjour, or salut, hello everyone. Um, hmm, let's try that intro again. Let's redo it. I'm not even gonna delete this. I literally wanted to be like, this is where I am, okay, with trying to do this stuff, right? So, 皆さんこんにちは、hola todos, 大家好，bonjour, salut ami, salut ami. Hey everybody. Still trying to get my intro down, clearly. But, yeah, I know it's been a minute since I've done my last Monday update, right? Oh my lord. When I tell you it's been one thing after another, after another, after another, after another, like I don't know. Um, the way I explained it to someone recently was like, I feel like just as I start to kind of find my rhythm and find my balance, boom, another change. And because of my ADHD, and also because of the fact that I have not, been keeping to my promise to take better care of myself, like get proper rest, um, all of that has created a lot of chaos, right? Um, it's just hard to remember things. It's hard to recall things. I literally almost forgot a client's appointment. Like I had an appointment, a client that scheduled a day with me, and I almost forgot that I was supposed to be working with my client. And then this past week, I feel like I'm just now getting over my depression that just took hold for the longest of time. The longest of time, like bad mood, again, like super forgetful, just mentally out of it, like mentally not having the strength or the stamina to do much of anything. No desire to even want to, do anything, but just lie there, kind of, sort of. However, you know, for me, right, like I literally just got through recording our Bible study for Spanish English, right, bilingual study, which is on my other channel. And it's something about reading the Word of God out loud. And then having to remember, like, okay, you see what he told Moses? It's like, don't you know that God is making that same promise to you? Like, I don't know. But even with that, like at first it was like it was ooh, that spirit, that just rebellious, like contentious, just bitter feelings of bitterness was so strong that it was like, I don't want to read my word. I don't even want to crack it open. I don't even want to get in my e-Bible, bro. Like, I just don't. But then because I'd already written like the scriptures and stuff in the lesson and then reading them out loud, you know, I don't know. It's something different, right? So, hmm, what can I say? Because this is a really long update, right? Or it's not going to be. I'm going to try to keep these videos really short because, who wants to really hear me talk for like 30 minutes to an hour? Y'all don't want to hear that. I don't know why. As soon as I say that in the back of my head, I hear like this little voice like, I do. I'm like, no, you don't. Stop lying. Um, oh my gosh, y'all. Um, I don't know. I feel like it has been a complete whirlwind, but at the same time, I feel like this always happens to me every year in a way. Like the first 2 months or so are a hot mess, and it's like, yeah, you planned for that. You did. It didn't go that way though, but okay. So here are some things that I was going to share from my last video that I decided not to upload because at that time my mood was horrible. So I was like, nobody needs to hear that. That's ugly. I don't know what that is, but we're not sharing that mess. So, oh boy. With Japanese, Nihongo, um, hmm, I'm not gonna lie, for a moment I wavered and I really wondered if I actually really do want to take the N2. Um, just because that whole process has been really frustrating. Like, I have the Shinkansen, right, materials. The problem is that I'm probably like a good solid N3. And that book was essentially made for people who are like already at the N2 level. Like, they're a very strong high N2. And therefore, even though it's written completely in Japanese and I don't really have too much of a problem reading Japanese, the problem is it's too high for my level. So I'm like, I can't understand this crap. Like, I need something that is made for people who are transitioning from N3 to N2. It's basically the equivalent, to try to explain it. It's like, imagine you have a ladder and you're kind of toward, the bottom of the ladder. You need to get to the top. You need to use this ladder to get to the next stage, right? But the ladder has so many rungs missing from it that it's like, okay, there's no way possible. Like, it's like you get to a certain point, you get to the middle point of the ladder, you look up and the rest of the rungs are missing. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get up there? Like, that's what it feels like. That's essentially what it is. And so it's like, okay, what is the next best thing I can do? Someone had shared a video of another young lady who she passed her N2 exam, basically just using everyday materials and resources. She didn't really use any textbooks. And so that's more or less kind of where my mind was at. Like, okay, if I do not have access, because I don't have the money to buy, I just don't, right? And at the same time, that's my whole thing anyway. That is my thing. How can you learn this language for free? Right? Unfortunately, like, nobody wants to talk about that. Except for people who have the means. Like, I know someone did it once before where they tried it out. Like, okay, let's say I don't have the means. I'm gonna, be that person who's so broke, right, that they have to use free resources. Or in this case, the person, their budget was like a minimum of $20 to $30 a week, which I'm like, that's nice. I don't even have that a month. Sometimes. It's like $20, $30 a week. Ooh. That's like what, 120 a month? Like, that's a lot, even for me, where I am now. So I'm like, yeah, it must be nice. But that was their budget, and even at that level, it was like, yeah, this is really difficult, and I don't know how people who are studying languages are doing this. In my mind, I was like, by any means necessary. By any means necessary. So yeah, it does get to a point where you eventually will have to pay, especially when you get to the intermediate level. That can be a really frustrating time because it's like your language partners, essentially, you're so good to where your language partners feel like they don't need to correct you anymore. And it's like, no, I still need to be corrected because it's not natural. I've gotten past the stage where it's like you can understand me and I can make the sentences and you get the gist of what I'm saying, but that's not good enough. I need to be at your level, native speaker. I need to know nuances. I need to know expressions and phrases, idioms, colloquial speech. I need to know these things so that I can sound even more natural when I speak, you know. And because they can, well, it's like, well, I can understand you. Even when you ask them to correct every error, which is rare to find somebody who does that. They say they'll do it, but they don't always do it right. It's like, well, I mean, I understood. Didn't I say correct everything? Right? You have to get a tutor to do that because that's the only person who's going to do it. You have to literally get somebody to pay a tutor, a a teacher or a language coach like yours truly to do it for you. Because they're the only people who are going to sit there and listen and be like, okay, they said this. Okay, let me write that down and then send them corrections. Well, at least that's what I do. I write as I listen because I can't, I'm not one of those people. Again, I really think it's because of ADHD, or at least for me, because I know every ADHDer is different. But for me, I cannot listen to you and talk at the same time. Like, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to listen to you, write the stuff down as I'm listening to you, because that's easier for me. And then send it to you. Because it's like, right now, we just need to talk. Like, I ain't got time. We ain't got time for that. Like, I need you to talk. Don't worry about that right now. Focus on just using the vocabulary that you have. Whatever you don't know, we'll learn together. If I don't know it, we're going to learn it together. Because we're a team, right? But yeah, anyway, yeah, that kind of stuff, it's like, ooh. So, I don't know, y'all, it's struggle life. It is, I don't know. So, besides all that, right, that being said, because it's like, okay, I cannot afford to go and get more resources. I cannot afford to hire a tutor and pay them, $20, $30 a week or more a week. Like, I don't have the means to do those things. So the next best thing is to use the resources that I have. And that is listening to podcasts, watching, my favorite anime or shows in Japanese. And also I've been reading news articles, with exception to this week, right? Because my depression and everything was just so bad. I really didn't feel like doing anything. Like, that is a mentally exhausting task, to read something in another language and then have to process the information that you're reading, not translating it, but literally processing the information is just mentally a strain. When you're already on E, it doesn't work out. But for the most part, yeah, I have been reading at least one news article a day in Japanese. Read an interesting story today in Peru about a drug trafficking sting. It was a crazy news article, but yeah, it was great. Um, so I've been doing that. Watching more YouTubers, vloggers in Japanese. Going back to, I really need to go back to reading my manga. Excuse me, reading my manga in Japanese. But yeah, it's like more reading, more listening. Unfortunately, the speaking part has been kind of going down because I haven't been able to practice with people at my level or higher. Like, I do have a language partner, and I practice with her once a week, but that's not going to cut it. Especially, I really need to maintain that skill, because it's like, again, like, I'm working with clients who are trying to get to my level. So if I'm, regressing, it's like, that's not good. So, yeah, it's like, I know the basics, but I need to also strengthen at the same time, and also because I'm trying to take the N2, so I really cannot afford to, like, go backwards. So, yeah. Been doing that. What else? Spanish. Oh, that's the other thing. I forgot to say that. If you don't believe I have ADHD, do you believe it now? Yeah, I forgot to say that. So, I have basically switched everything, all of my goals, to like one core goal for all of them. For Japanese, like, right, originally it was like, oh, I want to learn this, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, for like all of them, and then I realized that's not going to work. I'm sure that there's a way to incorporate those things into things, right? Like, I need to read more, so I'm going to read about things related to Japanese culture, but already, like, in my brain, I'm like, I don't have time for that. I need to focus on the N2. I have too much to cover. Like next year, I can focus on the other stuff. I can focus on learning prefectures, although I have been learning the names of prefectures through news articles, right? Um, but all the other stuff is all the other stuff, and it's like the most important, crucial thing that I need to make sure I center my time on. That's what needs to get my time right now, because I'm 2 months behind, right? So yeah, for Japanese, my only focus right now is the N2, and that's it. For Spanish right now, it's just learning professional Spanish. That's it. Learning professional Spanish, and in the process, using that to maintain and while also strengthen. I know it sounds weird, right? How do you maintain and strengthen? But yeah, because I have to review certain things, right? In order to learn the professional Spanish, like what does that word mean? And then I gotta learn the synonyms for said word to grasp like the higher level words that we're using in the class. Was the other thing. I am basically taking a online class. It's free. I'll see if I can put like a link or something in the description box. But yeah, you just know though, you need to be at least a very high, like a very strong intermediate in Spanish. You need to be at least like B1 in Spanish. At least. You need to be able to speak and respond and hold a conversation and be able to like, you know, at least with native speakers for a good minute. Okay, don't jump into that class thinking you A2 and like, oh yeah, I can handle it, and then you get in there and you don't understand what the heck is going on. Like, don't do that. Don't embarrass yourself. At the same time, you never know until you try something like that, right? Like, I wasn't too sure about my intermediate level until I got into class and I realized, oh, I can understand most of what she's saying, like 80 to 90% of what she's saying, I can understand. Even though like the reading materials are kind of high up there, like oh, but I'm like, oh, okay, like I can grasp it, I can hang, I can converse with people. It's cool. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm strengthening, I'm learning my professional Spanish and learning how to write contracts, learning, how to speak more professionally. I have a business Spanish podcast that I found. Haven't really been listening to it yet. But yeah, I need to get on that like this week. But yeah, doing the same thing basically with the passive activities. So like listening to podcasts and things like that. Um, but yeah, I completely stopped watching La Reina del Sur. I stopped watching all my dramas. 'Cause yeah, I don't know. It's it's been a lot and I just fell off. But yeah, that's my focus right now is with professional Spanish. With Mandarin, basically, my focus is to rebuild my foundation because I feel like I'm falling back into the same bad habits that caused me to have to relearn this language in 2022, right? Like it would have been 2 years of Mandarin study, but then I realized my Mandarin was shrinking, like it was regressing. I hadn't really been studying like anything. And it was like, okay, this is not working at all. So, I am going back to the basics, and I am using some study materials from Shua's Chinese speaking challenge. I got it from her like a long time ago, right? When I first started learning Mandarin, like I bought it, and so the challenge was if you finish her course within a certain amount of time, she would give you like a full refund. Well, naturally, I did not finish that because, yeah. But I still have the materials and I've been going back over them and it's been exciting to go back over her lessons And it's like, oh wow, to be able to read the conversations and things that she has in Chinese and completely understand like what's going on with, maybe like one or two words, vocabulary words. That's like, what's that word mean? But to really be able to like, oh, I understand this now. Like I can read these. I know these characters. Like this is awesome. Has been the most exciting thing ever. So I've been doing that. Like I basically for an hour study and take notes. Really, I'm not taking notes. I'm basically rewriting her lessons and restructuring the lesson so that it's more comprehensible for me, right? But in me rewriting it, that's been helpful for me at least. I don't know. Like, I know technically you're not supposed to do that, right? First of all, there's always those things that people say, like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. And it's like, do what works for you, okay? So rewriting them works for me. Does it take more time? Yeah. But at least it sticks in my brain better because I reworded it in the way that I understand it, in the way that makes sense to me, but still keeping true to the actual lesson and all those things, right? So anyway, ciao. That was long. This was supposed to be short, but I guess it's not going to be that way. So yeah, and technically I do that for all of them now. Like I take an hour, with exception to Spanish, because like I said, um, yeah, I'm just focused on getting through this class right now. And when I'm done, then I will, you know, probably find something. I mean, I did get a free book from the class, so I plan to maybe get started on that as soon as the class is over and just go through that. The only thing about the book is that it's a business Spanish book for people who never learned Spanish a day in their life. Right? It's not like a business Spanish book for people like me that are already intermediate and we don't need you to put in like the what's it called? The phonetic spelling and the translations and all of this, that, and the other. Like the Spanish may need to be a little bit more simplified because again, it's like B1 and then you're trying to get to a C1 level essentially. It's like, I might have to use a bit more simpler Spanish, but the whole thing could be in Spanish and it would be fine. But in this case, it has Spanish and English, so it's like, it's alright. It's cool. But yeah, I'll probably use that. But yeah, right now it's just like, nah, I'm getting through this class, which I have a quiz today, that I need to take. So, well, I'm recording this on a Sunday. Y'all will be hearing this on a Monday. So yeah, I gotta finish this quiz. But yeah. Anywho's, so yeah, that's what I've been doing with all of them, like sitting down studying for about an hour or so. Really, I'd say all of them, but really it's like Chinese and French. So, anyways, you get the point, okay? I sit down for about an hour and I go over those things and I try not to go past that hour because I know that when I push myself mentally, it causes a strain and then I get tired and I'm exhausted and I don't want to do anything else for the rest of the day. So, I'm just avoiding that. Um, Yeah, I'm just avoiding that. Like an hour is my maximum, and then that's it. I have to shut it down. But yeah, so I've been doing that. For Chinese, I've still been going using immersive Chinese, but I'm using it in a different way now because I realize my Chinese listening it has severely declined. Especially when I talk to my language partner, I realize, okay, I really need to work on my listening skills more because oftentimes she either has to repeat herself or she has to talk slower, or in some cases she even has to write it down. And then once she writes it down, I'm like, oh crap, I do know these words. I do know these words. It's like there's a delay in my brain, where it's like I hear the sounds, and then because I think it's not necessarily that I'm trying to translate, I'm trying to like remember the words. I'm like, what? Um, So yeah, so what I've been doing with immersive Chinese now is I hide the characters, because you can hide the pinyin, the Chinese characters, and then the English translation, right? So I hide the sentences and I press play and I listen to the sentence first, right? I listen to the audio of it's like a lady and a man now that they have. So shout out to immersive Chinese. Please sponsor me. For real though. I always recommend them now. I'm like, yeah, immersive Chinese, that's the way to go. Pay the money. I don't care. Pay the money. Just pay for the full version and you'll be happy with it, I promise. Um, but yeah. So I listen to what she says and then I try to repeat after her, right? Or depending on the day, if I'm just super tired, I just try to listen and then I'll try to like translate it in English to figure out, okay, so in English, what would that be? And so I'll say it in English, then I'll try to, because sometimes even when I'm able to repeat exactly what she said word for word, there's like this weird disconnect thing where I'm like, okay, so what does that mean again? So I have to like say it out loud and then like, okay, so I think she's saying this because I don't know. I'm one of those people where sometimes I just have to say it literally in order for me to soak it in my brain so that when I try to express, like, okay, so this is how this would be expressed naturally in English, right? Taking that literal translation, then be like, okay, now in English, naturally we would say this. And then, like, saying it again, over and over again in Chinese, and each time referring it back to, like, the natural English translation, but then remembering, like, okay, so when I want to say this, I need to literally think this. Think that literal translation in English, and it's like, and then what are those words in Chinese? Okay, boom. And that's just how I do it sometimes. I feel like that's how I've done it for a lot of my languages, right? So where I don't translate anymore because it's like, okay, I know the word order. I know the order it needs to be in. I know how I need to express that. So then if there's something else similar to that that I want to say, like, well, now I know the formula. And it's like it needs to be in this kind of order and then go from there. So by doing that, it actually has helped with my listening. Even on Lingo Deer, I did have it to where I had both like the pinyin and the Hanzi to where it would show both, but I've turned off the pinyin because I feel like the pinyin was starting to hinder me. Because then it's like you only read the pinyin, but now you're not reading characters. So because you're not reading the characters, you're not memorizing them, right? You're only memorizing the pinyin, and so when you're hearing the word or whatever, you don't have something to refer back to in your brain. At least for me as a visual person, I don't have that character to refer back to, and because there's so many characters with a similar sound, it's like, well, what word is that? I don't know. I don't know. Again, I think these are things related to ADHD, but I have no idea, right? Where it's like you think of all the possibilities. You think of every single word instead of just, okay, well, what does the context say? Well, I don't know because it could be anything. It could be anything. What do you mean context clues? What does that mean? What does context clues mean to somebody with ADHD? Like, they're all clues. So yeah. Um, but yeah, that's what I've been doing is listening to the audio. I'll repeat right after her, and then I think about it for a minute. Sometimes I have to say it slowly, word for word, like literally almost like sounding out the Chinese words. Like, 我是美国人. Now I know what that is. That's a simple sentence, right? I'm American, soy estadounidense, right? American this. How do you say it in French? Je suis américain, right? Like I know that. Or je suis américain if you're a man. But yeah, but it's something. That's what it sounds like as I'm trying to say it. Like 我是美国人. And sometimes it's hard some days because of my, my listening is just horrible, right? So it's like, play it again. 我是美 okay, something something. 我是美国嗯我是美国like over and over again, and then finally Ren. She's saying Ren. 我是美国人. So like I'm American. Then look at the translation. Oh, okay, cool. But then sometimes I don't get it. Like, and then after, like, I have to put a minimum on that because I will stress myself out if I do it too many times. It's like, okay, if you didn't get it after the fourth, fifth time, babe, just look at the sentence. So then I had to look at the characters to see, like, what's being said. And then it's like, okay, great. Now, let's look at the sentence. Now look at the sentence in Chinese. All right, now do you kind of understand? It's like, okay, well, that is what she was saying, but I still don't get it. Like, so then in English, how would you say that naturally? Because literally it means this, and I know that's not how we say it. It's like I understand what they're saying, but I don't understand what it's communicating. Like, I need to know what is this expressing, because literally it's not making sense. Look at the English translation. Oh, yeah, that is how we say that. That is how we say that. Oh. So, yeah. Now, Francais, because I am way over time. I don't know if I'm going to be able to even cut this down. Depending on how CapCut works tomorrow, we'll see. Because when I tell you I've been having issues with everything, I've been having issues with everything. So, try not to focus on that too much because then I'll get frustrated again, and it's like, I don't have time for that. But, yeah, Francais. I realized I was falling into the same pit hole, the same trap with France, with French that I was with Mandarin. And so, yeah, it's like, okay, I've gone back to just using my Easy French step-by-step book. I use that for an hour and I just go through. Now, with that, I don't rewrite them. I take my notes by hand. Like, I get my notebook, or my binder rather, and I sit down for an hour and I just go through. I read passages first, and then I write down the key sentences so that I am not tempted to write word for word everything in there. Then after that, I listen to Coffee Break French, and that's been helpful because it's like, okay, like repeat after me type thing. And for a beginner, a super beginner, I think it's pretty useful, right? Ça va pas, ça va pas, je ne sais pas, right? Which is low key me. Ça ne va pas, je ne sais pas, ça va pas. But yeah, ça va pas, but ça va bien. I'll say that. I'm not okay, but I'm still okay. I'm gonna be okay. But yeah, so that's been helpful using that. And yeah, basically trying to get the basics down. Whatever. Yeah, I'm focused for friends. I'm just focused on getting those basics down so I can get to that B1. Like, I do see how it is possible, perhaps for an English speaker or a, somebody who has like a Romance language base to get to like a B1, B2 level in a year in French. Because it's like, oh, there's a lot of like similarities and things that you can pull from your own language, so where it's like, oh, okay, oh, well, I know what that word is because it's similar to this word, right? My Spanish and English background have been helping me a lot. I'm able to like hear the actual words. It's not sound in the language anymore. It's just that I don't know what those words mean. But even then, like I'll hear certain things, I'm like, oh, I know that word. And I'm able to do that faster in French than I have been in any of my other languages, including Spanish. So that says something. I like to joke that it's because there's French in me, right? Like on my mother's side, they have French roots. My grandmother, like I shared, I think in the first one, right? She spoke Creole French. So it's like it's in you, it's there, right? It's just a matter of bringing it out. So yeah, but that's basically the update. Long update. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do to make them shorter, but I don't know. I know that I don't like hearing myself talk like this for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't know. I'm trying to make it interesting, but it is what it is, y'all. It is what it is. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. Maybe I need to start adding some music to make it interesting. I don't know. We'll see. But in the meantime, God bless, peace, all that jazz, all that good stuff. Take care. Matane. Hasta la próxima. 再见. Bientôt. Bien, à bientôt. And yeah, bye guys. Gotta go take this exam now. This test.